Welcome back to Philosophy and Ethics in Games, the series where I break down the choices in some of my favorite games and figure out which decision is the right one. I'm Josh Bearheart Hawk, and in this episode, we're diving back into TellTale Games' The Walking Dead Season 1, this time getting into Episode 3. In case you missed the previous episodes, I've linked a playlist in the description below. As I continue to break down the series, I'll add new videos to the playlist so you can find them all in one place. Episode 3 is titled The Long Road Ahead, and we open with Lee and Kenny sneaking into Macon to gather whatever supplies might be left in the town after the first few months of society's collapse. There's some brief conversation between them referencing the state of things following episode 2, ending with Lee standing on the hood of an army jeep as Kenny offers him a hand up. But Kenny's still suffering the effects of being shot, and he winds up dropping Lee before the two are interrupted by the screaming of a girl coming from a building down the street. As they watch, the girl runs out in the middle of town, dragging a group of zombies to her. At this point, you're offered the first big choice of the episode. You can choose to shoot the girl, who we see get bitten and we know is going to die either way, or you can leave her to the dead. Kenny argues that she's dead anyway and urges you to leave her, but what is the right decision morally? As we've discussed in prior episodes, what we might consider right in this situation in our present day isn't necessarily right in the new world our characters find themselves in. Morality is dependent on society and the rules we choose to live by, and it's important to look at the whole picture. On the one hand, she's suffering and will suffer even more if she isn't killed prior to being eaten. This is very similar to the question from episode 1 about whether to hand the girl in the motel a gun, but there's a twist on this occasion. Ending her suffering would mean that the zombies would turn their attention to Lee and Kenny, who need the extra time the girl being alive would provide to gather supplies for their group. Not only would her screaming stop, but the gunshot would bring the dead straight to the men, severely hindering any chance they would have in searching the drugstore in relative peace. In a way, the situation is a version of something known in philosophy as the trolley problem. Picture a set of train tracks that diverge in a fork. Down one set is a group of people tied up, and down the other is a single individual also tied up. A train is approaching the fork, which is currently set to send the train toward the group of people, and you have the chance to flip a switch that would send it down the other set of tracks. Do you flip the switch? If you kill her, you likely won't be able to gather enough supplies to keep the group going, meaning someone else could die. Letting her suffer could very well be the difference between someone like Clementine living or dying. The best thing you can do in this situation is let her die at the hands of the zombies. You have to focus on what's best for the group. Getting into the pharmacy, you find a decent load of supplies. The girl's screams stop after a few moments, but she provides enough time for you to get what was left and get out, barely escaping the dead and making it back to the motor inn. Getting back, there's another argument between Kenny and Lily, mainly focused around whether to stay at the motel or leave. Near the end of that scuffle, Lily reveals that someone has been stealing supplies, and you are tasked with finding out who it was. Even as he's becoming a detective, though, Lee is also faced with whether to reveal his past to the group when Carly pulls him aside and suggests that he tell people he cares about the most. She reasons they will find out eventually, as Larry likely told Lily, and that the truth could spill out at the worst possible time. The best thing to do is tell the majority of the group, Kenny, Katja, Lily, and Clementine, about your past as a convicted murderer and hope for the best. The last thing you want is to be in the middle of an argument and have Lily throw it out as a shock to everyone else. Whether you choose to tell people or not, you still have to talk to everyone and look around camp to figure out what happened to the missing supplies. A broken flashlight leads to a chalk X on one of the outer walls, and eventually you discover some of the supplies hidden in a grate outside the walls. As you're telling Lily what you found, a group of bandits take the group hostage and demand you cough up what they consider their property. A gunfight ensues, zombies come out of the woods, and you finally pile into the RV that Kenny's been repairing and smash out of the motel parking lot into the open road. As the adrenaline of the escape is still flowing, Lily starts accusing people in the group of stealing supplies, honing in on Carly and Ben as the likely culprits. The situation doesn't seem like it could get any more tense, but when Kenny runs over a zombie, bringing the RV to a stop, it escalates as Lily calls for a vote on who to kick out of the group. Before the vote can happen, and as Kenny is finally breaking the stuck zombie free from the axle, Lily pulls out her gun and shoots Carly point blank. And now you're forced to make another choice. Do you take Lily back into the RV with the rest of the group, or leave her behind? What she's done is clearly murder, but how is what she did different from what Lee has done in his past, or what Kenny did to Larry? It all boils down to lines we choose to draw as a society. What Lee did was in the past, well before he knew anyone in the present group. He'd been convicted and was on his way to live out his sentence when all hell broke loose. It could even be explained away as a crime of passion, and he has shown himself to be an asset rather than a danger to the group. It's also likely the whole experience gives him a different perspective on things in this new world than others might have. He realizes what he did was wrong, showing remorse in conversations with others over the series, and he wants to be a better person. Kenny killing Larry could be considered murder, but it would be seen more as trying to protect the group from a threat. Larry might have been dead, all signs pointed to that fact, and the action of smashing his head could easily be justified given the risk to those in the cooler if he reanimated. Lily pointed her gun in the face of an unarmed woman in the heat of an argument and pulled the trigger. It could be seen as the action of a person who'd been through a lot mentally, who'd finally broken under the stress of the situation, but that just makes it worse. Lily has been trying to make herself out as the leader of the group. She's been looking out for them on the whole, even keeping her own count of supplies to monitor what she suspected was someone stealing them. But she's also been unhinged and seemingly picking fights with Kenny constantly. Kenny isn't innocent in the situation, but a stable leader wouldn't have been falling for his bait when he started arguments. Even before her dad died, she was a loose cannon, and seeing her shoot Carly unprovoked just shows how far she spiraled. The right solution would have been to talk things out after the edge of escaping the motel had died off. While the initial impression was that someone was stealing supplies, there were other possible explanations, and cooler heads might have figured things out. Part of figuring out how society, how our group, works in this new world is pushing boundaries and finding out where our personal lines are. A stable society is one where a group of individuals agree on what is allowed and what goes too far. Kenny walked up to the line by dropping the salt block on Larry's head, but Lily crossed it by shooting Carly. Lee, Kenny, and Katja are the three members of the group that must decide that line, with Lily being the one whose future is at stake, and Ben being too new to the group to be a part of the decision. Kenny is clear on his thoughts, and a discussion with Katja later on reveals she agreed with the decision to leave Lily behind.
Would you have left Lily back there? On the side of the road like that?
Yes, Lee.
Yeah?
We have to have lines. Yes, I would have left her.
And that gets to one of the biggest problems with the group to this point. They haven't been a cohesive community. They've been a group of individuals with different ideas and values just trying to find a way to survive in a world that's been turned upside down. Kenny and Lily have both been trying to force the group to go the way they want, and everyone, including Lee, has been forced to take a side. In order for things to get better, they have to learn to get along, and their moral system and values need to line up. Climbing back into the RV, with or without Lily, the group starts moving again, and Kenny and Katja reveal to Lee that Duck was bitten in the escape from the motor inn. They both seem to be in a state of denial about what's going to happen, and it seems like things can't really get any worse. You have to tell Clementine about Duck being bitten, and after one of the nicer moments of the episode, where you get the chance to just slow down and converse with her, Lee falls asleep and has a nightmare before waking up to hear Kenny saying that the road ahead is blocked. The blockage turns out to be a train, and after looking around and meeting one of the best characters in the entire series, Chuck, you're able to get the train moving. Things seem to be looking up as the group barrels towards Savannah in a 200-ton steel behemoth. But the reality of Duck's bite finally sets in for Katja, and it isn't long before you find yourself trying to get Kenny to stop the train and face something that's truly unstoppable. As a parent myself, I've been in some tough situations with my kids. Recently, I even had to face the possibility of losing one of them due to illness. The thought of burying a child is more than most parents can bear, and to be in the shoes of Kenny and Katja, knowing what would need to be done to end Duck's suffering and make sure he didn't come back, would be more than most could handle. As Lee, you have the option of easing at least some of the burden by offering to end Duck's life. This whole sequence is one of the saddest of the season, and it gets so much worse when your talk with Clementine about what's about to happen is interrupted by a gunshot in the woods and Kenny's screams. Rushing out, you find Kenny hunched over Katja's body, as Duck lays at the foot of a nearby tree. Katja couldn't live with losing her baby, especially in that way, and she ended her own life. And this is where the title of the episode, The Long Road Ahead, really hits. In the span of about 24 hours, the group has lost their home, Carly is dead at the hands of Lily, who's been left to die herself on the road, Duck was bitten, Katja dies by her own hand, and finally, Lee has to decide whether to kill Duck or have Kenny do it. Unwilling to put Kenny through something even harder than losing his wife and son at the same time, I chose to have Lee shoot the boy. Getting back on the train, the next little bit of time is passed by talking to Clementine and Chuck, and teaching Clem to shoot and deal with a bad haircut. Between all of that, Ben, who's been extremely disconnected from the events since Lily was kicked off the RV, admits to Lee that he was the one who'd been stealing supplies and giving them to the bandits back at the motel. In context, that means that he is responsible for the deaths of at least 3 people, either directly or indirectly. You can choose to threaten him, but for the time being, there is no choice to kick him off the train or out of the group. He does say that he was only providing the supplies to the bandits because he thought they had his friends, but that wouldn't really be much consolation to Kenny at this point. The obstacles aren't all cleared, however, as a tanker truck hanging from a bridge brings the train to a halt once more, and we meet 2 new people, Omid and Krista. We'll learn more about them as time goes on, but for now they help the group cut the tanker down and clear the tracks just as a horde of zombies appears. The train gets moving just in time to keep the group alive, and as the episode draws to a close, we can see Savannah in the distance. But the city might not be all it's cracked up to be, and the voice of a man breaking through on Clementine's walkie-talkie lends a rather foreboding feeling as we fade to black. But that mystery is for the next episode. I want to take a second here to thank everyone who's taken time to comment on the first couple of videos in the series. I didn't really expect these videos to blow up, and I'm happy that they've reached a lot of people on this small channel of mine, and I'm even more excited that you've all been enjoying them. I'm planning to go through the whole series, and I'm actively looking for other games to cover in the future like this, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything. I've also got a Patreon for those who are interested. That's linked in the description below, along with my website and a few other things. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.